All right, back here with another, just predicting what's going to happen the rest of the way. The way this works is I predict every single game from here on out using the ESPN Playoff Machine, which is a lot of fun to use. I highly recommend, if you want to have some fun, just Google ESPN Playoff Machine. You can pick the games, and then it'll let you know who would make the playoffs and who would get every seed and all of that with how you pick every single game. This is not a sponsored video, obviously, just something I have fun with. And yeah, so I did this, and I think there's some fascinating stuff, so let's just get into it. So first things first, as always, I'm going to show my work here. I'll let you know, these are the teams that I picked to win. I don't expect you to go through all of them, but if you have any questions about why a team ended up somewhere, the one that's kind of lighter, that is the team that wins. So that's how this works. Anyways, let's see what ended up happening. So in the NFC, we have the Green Bay Packers now as the #1 seed. They weren't the #1 seed before when I had done these, but I didn't have the Cardinals losing a game. Now that the Cardinals have lost a game, and also Tampa Bay beating the Bills, who I had penciled them in as a loss for this entire time. Now, all three of those teams tied at 14-3. The tiebreaker would go to the Green Bay Packers. So the Green Bay Packers sitting here with the 1 seed. Now, if the Packers lose a game, obviously they drop back, but their schedule isn't that difficult, as in remaining schedule. Of course, they play the Ravens, who I have them winning. I have them winning every game, obviously. The Ravens should be a win, largely because the Ravens are banged up, although Lamar Jackson coming back does make it a game. Same thing with, the Cleveland Browns, that's certainly a game, and then the Minnesota Vikings, which have beaten the Packers in the past. So it's not the most difficult schedule in the world, but it is one you could see the Packers dropping a game, whereas Tampa Bay, they have the Saints, who have given them trouble, obviously, but other than that, they have a pretty easy schedule. So it's not crazy to think Tampa Bay could find a way to squeak in there as the 1 seed. Again, this is kind of part of the problem with this whole list, of course, is that, well, you look at this and say, well, if the favorites win every single time, this is what happens. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be heavier favorites in all of their games than the Packers will be in theirs. So that's where things get a little bit interesting. For the Cardinals, they also have, a couple of games that could be tough with the Colts and the Cowboys, and even the Seahawks, who, they still have Russell Wilson. They also play the Lions, so they'll win that one probably. The 4th and 5th seed, I do have the Rams winning more games now. I think in the past, I had, at one point, had the 49ers get that first wild card spot. But no, it would be the Rams with the 5 seed right here, which I think you want. Like, Dallas is good, but I think you'd much rather play Dallas than one of the big 3 in the NFC. So getting that 5 seed is important because, the 49ers playing the Cardinals. Well, it could be interesting just because it's a divisional matchup, but that's still, it's a tough draw. And then Washington and Tampa Bay would play each other again, a rematch of last year, but this time it would be in Tampa Bay instead of Washington. If it holds, should be mentioned. And actually, let's just get over to the next panel now. This is where every single team in the NFC ends up. Let's start with the NFC East, because you see Washington here at 9-8. So a big part of why they're here at 9-8 is because I have them beating Philadelphia twice. You could certainly make the argument that that's not fair. And, again, I think that they're slight favorites. I think in the past, when I had made these videos last week, I had Philadelphia beating Washington twice. So it's like such a small margin. I probably should just have it be a split. But even if it was a split and they each win 1 game, then Washington would still make the playoffs. So that's worth noting, because the next best record is 8-9, and they would have the tiebreaker. So interesting stuff there. Going on to the NFC West, you have 3 playoff teams and 3 10-win playoff teams. Even Seattle with an outside chance. Like, they would have to pull off a couple upsets, but Seattle does have an outside chance at getting in. It does seem a bit unlikely, though. Going to the NFC North, we've already talked about Green Bay. Minnesota's another interesting one, where really what it comes down to with the Vikings is I like their roster. I think that they're a talented team. I just think they lost too many games that they couldn't afford to lose, and according to this, they're going to fall 1 short. Now, one thing worth mentioning is they play the Rams and the Packers. Those are games that I have them losing, but they could, in theory, win. If they win one of those and then beat the Bears twice, then that would, give them a much better chance of making the playoffs. However, I think the issue is, just beating the Bears twice, we've seen them lose games they're supposed to win. So, interesting there. And then going to the NFC South, so the Saints are another team where they're currently only 1 game back of a playoff spot, they could get in. They really could. It's not crazy to think that New Orleans could end up in this playoff spot, especially because, so they play Tampa Bay. I have that as a loss, but that is a game that they have been able to pull off a victory of in the past. And then they play the Dolphins, the Panthers, and the Falcons. It's not crazy to think that they could win 3 of those games and end up with 9 wins. Now, I have them losing to the Dolphins as well, but you could argue that. Although worth mentioning, I also have them beating the Panthers and Falcons. There's no guarantee. And even Atlanta, I think that they have a chance. You know, if you say that they should beat the Saints week 17, which you could make that argument, well, then that gets them an extra win, and then they would have to beat either the 49ers or the Bills. I don't think, especially the 49ers, I think that's possible, although I do think they're underdogs in that game. All right, now the AFC, the New England Patriots continue to be this 1 seed, although, you know, they've always been close. It's never been like they're easily the 1 seed. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Patriots, I have winning out from here on out, so you drop 1 game, and the Patriots are actually, I believe, they're biggest underdogs against the Colts, at least in some, some sites have them as underdogs, so that's kind of crazy to think. But I would probably put the Patriots as favorites in that one. They're, the 1 seed. Their biggest competition, according to me, is the Kansas City Chiefs to get that 1 seed. Those are 2 very good teams. The Titans will still be able to kind of coast into a division victory because of all the good work they did when they had Derrick Henry, and Henry should be back for the playoffs. So sucks that you kind of lose your opportunity to get the 1 seed with that injury, but at least you're in the playoffs and probably going to win a division, it seems like. I have the Cleveland Browns getting the 4 seed here. I've had 3 different teams since doing this. I think it's my 3rd or 4th week doing it. I think it's 4th week doing it, and I've had 3 different division winners here in the AFC North. I now have the Cleveland Browns, which is kind of surprising. Now, the reason why they're, here is they're playing the Raiders next week. I just don't feel that confident about the Raiders. That's actually the Saturday game. I just think the Browns have a much better chance of winning that one. They play the Packers, which that's the 1 loss I have them getting down the stretch. They play the Steelers, which they should win, but it's no guarantee. And then they play the Bengals week 18. I keep saying week 17, but week 18 is what I mean. That could go either way. I have it Cleveland, but who knows what happens. But still, Cleveland looking good. The 5 seed, the Los Angeles Chargers, who the Chargers actually they have a non-zero chance of getting the bye week themselves. I ended up going with the Thursday night game. I gave the edge to the Chiefs, but you could easily say the Chargers should have that. They get that one, and that already puts them in a pretty decent position to, they do that. They sort of run the table, and, at this point, they probably would go 12-5 right there. You would need some help from the Patriots, but it's not out of the question. The Bills, I still have going 10-7. I think the Bills are good, and I think that whoever ends up getting stuck playing the Bills wildcard weekend is going to be unhappy because their record is not going to show how good of a team they are. And you could argue the same thing with the Colts. I mean, all these teams, and even some teams that I don't have in the playoffs, are very good teams. All right, so here's the entire AFC now. So AFC East, what's interesting about this is Miami here at 8-9. Again, like I said, I haven't beaten the Saints. You could kind of argue that one either way, but there's an outside chance they can find a way to get into the playoffs. Now, I think they would probably need some help to get in. I think it's definitely a bit of a tough situation, especially when they end the season playing the Titans and the Patriots. That's going to be tough to pull those off, but I don't know. The Titans have had some fluky games this year. Maybe you catch them on the right day. And who knows? Maybe the Patriots have the 1 seed locked up and they rest their starters, and you can, although they typically don't fully rest their starters, they'll have their starters at least play some. So I don't know how well that will work. But still, there is some hope for Miami to get in, although I would still say it's a bit of a long shot. In the AFC West, you have now, Chiefs and Chargers, talked about them. The Broncos, another team where they very much are in it. I mean, they have a legitimate chance. They're not that far out of it with their, 8-9 projected record, and there's some winnable games. In fact, the only game where I'm like, that would be tough would be Kansas City, but again, maybe Kansas City will have the 1 seed locked up or the 2 seed locked up and rest their starters. It doesn't just have to be the 1 seed that makes you rest your starters. That could help them get in. The AFC North here, where you have Cleveland, as I said, they're the team I have getting in. No Cincinnati and no Baltimore. And Baltimore is a team that this is now the 2nd week in a row I have them projected to miss the postseason. I think it's a very real possibility, even though it seems kind of crazy to think. And again, like I keep saying, it's the injuries. It's not the fact that I think that they're a bad team by any means, but currently, despite 8 wins, I have them going 1-3 down the stretch. They play Green Bay, Cincinnati, and Baltimore the next 3 games. I think those are all very losable games. Now, you beat Cincinnati, that changes everything, or you beat Green Bay or the Rams, and that changes everything. But again, they play the Steelers, which is no guarantee. So they're going to have to pull off one of these games that I would consider to be a slight upset, although not a massive one. Finally, the AFC South here. So I have the Tennessee Titans as the division winner, and we know that. And the Colts get in with the wild card spot. Not too much else to add there. I mean, Jaguars and Houston, we kind of get, okay, they're not exactly too much of a talented football team there. So yeah, that's what I have. What do you guys have? Let me know in the comments below. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know why. Very much interested in this final month of the season. This is where we're back into it. The football is all the way back, so fun stuff. That's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.